I noticed the diagnosis before I noticed the clinic. It was a single line in a document that didn't belong to me. Observed mild cognitive decline. No date I recognized. No appointment I remembered. The rest of the page was clean, official, structured. The kind of structure that makes people stop asking questions. I closed the folder and placed it back on the table exactly as I had found it. Alignment matters. When something is out of place, the first instinct is to correct it. But correction erases evidence. I didn't correct anything. I am 72 years old, and I live alone in an apartment that still sounds the same in the mornings. The radiator ticks twice before it warms. The kettle whistles earlier in winter. The floor near the window creaks if you step too quickly. These are not noises. They are confirmations. My life is not complicated. I wake early because routine is a form of memory that doesn't rely on mood. Coffee first. Black. Then the news, printed, not scrolled. Paper leaves a trail. Screens leave impressions. I keep folders for everything. Utilities, insurance, medical, not because I expect trouble, but because order prevents it. When something is written down, it cannot change its mind later. After my wife died, people began using the word adjustment around me. They said it softly, as if it were fragile. Adjustment implies movement. I did not move. I kept the same chair by the window, the same mug in the cupboard, the same pen on the desk. Stability is not stubbornness, it is continuity. I do not forget appointments. I do not miss payments. I do not confuse dates. These are not talents. They are habits built slowly and defended quietly. Which is why the sentence stood out. Mild cognitive decline. It wasn't the wording. It was the certainty. Someone had not asked. Someone had concluded. I opened the folder again and read the header more carefully. Clinical observation. Summary. There was a clinic name printed in the corner. I had never been there. The page number read 2 of 4. I did not have pages 1, 3, or 4. I checked the date. It fell on a Thursday afternoon 2 weeks earlier. On Thursdays, I mop the kitchen floor. I remember because the movement clears my head and leaves the tiles drying in the late light. That Thursday had been no different. I had receipts from the market. A phone call with my sister. A water bill paid at 16:12. There had been no clinic. I stood up, walked to the sink, and washed my hands. Not because they were dirty, but because certain realizations require a physical reset. Warm water. Soap. 30 seconds. The body returns to neutral before the mind proceeds. Then I went back to the table and took out a notebook. Not a diary. A record. Date. Time. Document found. Exact wording. Clinic name. Page number. No conclusions. Only facts. The apartment was quiet. Outside, a bus sighed to a stop and moved again. Someone upstairs dropped something small and metallic. Life continued with its usual indifference. I did not feel fear. Fear rushes. I felt misalignment. A diagnosis is not an opinion. It is a key that opens other doors. Insurance, authority, permission. Once written, it travels. I opened my medical folder and checked the tabs. My last actual appointment had been 6 months ago. Routine blood work. Normal results. No referrals. No concerns. The paperwork was complete, signed, and stamped. The new page did not match the sequence. The hole punches were slightly off. The margin was narrower. It had been inserted, not filed. Someone had added me to a conversation I had not attended. I wrote one more line in the notebook. Observation exists. Appointment does not. Source unknown. Then I closed the folder and returned it to the drawer, leaving everything exactly as it was, except for the knowledge that it was no longer neutral. The morning light reached the edge of the table and stopped. Dust moved in it slowly, without urgency. Objects do not hurry. Only people do. I have learned that when a system speaks about you, it rarely raises its voice. It writes, and writing, once accepted, begins to multiply. The next call came from my insurance provider. Not urgent, not alarmed, routine. That was the first word the representative used, and it was the second thing I wrote down. Routine follow-up, she said. We just need to confirm your primary care alignment. I asked her to repeat the phrase. People rarely notice language when it's presented politely. Politeness is the disguise of assumption. Primary care alignment, she repeated, slower this time, as if clarity were kindness. I'm not familiar with that term, I replied. There was a short pause, the kind that happens when a script encounters resistance. Then she adjusted. It's just confirmation that your attending physician remains the same. I don't have an attending physician, I said calmly. I have a clinic I visit twice a year. Another pause. Longer. Well, she said carefully, our records show an assigned physician based on your recent observation. Observation. The word again. Not visit. Not appointment. Observation. Which physician? I asked. She read the name. It did not belong to anyone I had ever met. I did not correct her. Correction suggests disagreement. Agreement suggests acceptance. I chose documentation. Could you please send me the record you're referencing? I asked. Of course, she said quickly. It should already be in your portal. I thanked her and ended the call without elaboration. Then I opened my notebook and added 3 lines. Insurance confirms assigned physician. Terminology. Observation. Portal referenced. The word, portal, is where systems hide their certainty. When something is in the portal, it is presumed to be known, even if it has never been seen. I opened my laptop and logged in. The interface looked the same as it always had, blue headers, white background, small icons pretending to be friendly. Familiarity is the most efficient camouflage. I navigated to medical history. There it was, a new entry labeled Clinical Observation, Cognitive Review. Date matched the page I had found. Physician matched the name the representative had read. Status. Filed. Filed is a final word. It implies completion. It discourages questions. I clicked the document. Only 2 pages were visible. The same second page I had found, and a 4th page with a digital signature I did not recognize. Pages 1 and 3 were marked, restricted. Restricted to whom was not specified. I did not attempt access immediately. Systems reveal more when approached indirectly. Direct requests trigger defenses. Indirect ones expose structure. Instead, I checked the access log. 2 entries appeared under recent activity. One was mine, timestamped moments ago. The other was from 10 days earlier, late afternoon, from a device not labeled as mine. The device ID was partial, but the location field was complete. It matched my city, not my network. I copied the information into my notebook exactly as it appeared. No interpretation, no emphasis. Then I closed the laptop and sat still long enough for the room to return to its usual sounds. The refrigerator resumed its quiet cycle. A car door closed outside. The building settled into its afternoon rhythm. Nothing had changed physically, and yet, a physician had been assigned to me. An observation had been filed. A signature existed where no conversation had taken place. I stood and walked to the window. The street below moved with its ordinary confidence. People crossing on green lights, buses aligning with curbs, deliveries made to the correct doors. Systems working as intended. That is what made the discrepancy so precise. It was not chaos. It was order, applied without consent. I returned to the desk and wrote one more line. Entry created. Authority implied. Origin unverified. I did not feel accused. Accusations are loud. This was quieter. This was classification. When a system classifies you, it does not ask who you are. It decides what you will be treated as next. The letter arrived the following Tuesday. It was not addressed incorrectly. It was addressed precisely. Care Coordination Notice. Those 3 words are designed to sound supportive. They imply assistance without specifying authority. I placed the envelope on the table and observed it for a moment before opening it. Paper reveals intention through its phrasing long before it reveals content. Inside was a single sheet. No accusations. No urgency. Just scheduling language. A wellness visit has been tentatively arranged to ensure continuity of care. Tentatively arranged is not a request. It is a decision softened by grammar. I checked the date. 2 days from now. Mid-morning. I checked my own calendar. The square for that morning was empty because nothing had been planned. The emptiness was now being interpreted as availability. I turned the page over. Nothing on the back. No signature. Only a department stamp and a generic phone number. I wrote in the notebook. Visit scheduled without consent. Terminology. Continuity. No physician named. Then I set the paper aside and went to the kitchen. I filled the kettle and waited for the sound of water heating. Ordinary sounds help separate reaction from response. When the whistle came, it sounded the same as always. The apartment had not accepted the change, it merely contained it. After tea, I returned to the desk and called the number printed at the bottom of the notice. A recorded menu answered first. Options for billing, pharmacy, appointments. None for unsolicited classification. I selected appointments. A woman answered with practiced brightness. I received a care coordination notice. I said, I'd like clarification. Of course, she replied. May I have your member ID? I provided it. A pause. Keyboard sounds. The faint hum of a headset. Yes, she said. I see the scheduled wellness visit. I did not schedule a visit, I said evenly. It was initiated through your file, she replied, the tone unchanged. Standard procedure after a cognitive observation. Observation again. The word was now structural. Who initiated it? I asked. Another pause. Shorter this time, more guarded. It appears to have been authorized by a family contact. Family contact. 2 words that carry permission without proof. I would like the name, I said. I'm not able to disclose that, she answered. But you may cancel the visit if you prefer. Cancel implies ownership. You cancel what you arrange. You decline what you did not. I will not cancel, I said. I will not confirm either. Please mark it as unverified. She hesitated, then typed again. I can add a note. Add this exactly, I said. Member disputes initiation and requests source documentation. Silence for 3 seconds. Then, noted. I thanked her and ended the call. In the notebook, I added, initiation attributed to family contact. Disclosure refused. Dispute recorded verbally. I opened the laptop again and checked the portal. A new line had appeared beneath the visit. Member notified. Notification is not consent, but in records, it begins to resemble it if left unchallenged. I did not challenge it online. Online challenges create summaries. Summaries compress nuance. I prefer sequences. Instead, I printed the page. Printers leave timestamps in margins. Margins remember when screens forget. I filed the printout in the medical folder, behind the inserted observation, not in front of it. Order matters. The sequence tells the story later when memory becomes negotiable. Late afternoon light reached the edge of the desk and retreated. The day completed itself without consulting the notice, the visit, or the assigned physician. Systems move regardless of individual awareness. That is their efficiency. I stood, straightened the chair, and closed the drawer. Then I wrote one final line for the day. Notification exists. Authorization unknown. Sequence preserved. When decisions are made about you in absentia, they do not arrive as alarms. They arrive as appointments. The visit did not begin with a knock. It began with a sound in the hallway. 2 voices, low, coordinated, followed by the brief metallic click of the building's outer door closing. Not my door. The main entrance. Timing matters. When professionals arrive, they arrive together. I checked the clock. 10:03. 3 minutes after the scheduled time. Punctuality is a form of authority. It suggests inevitability. I did not approach the door immediately. Instead, I went to the desk and opened the notebook to a clean line. Date, time, ambient detail. The pen moved without urgency. 10:04. Hallway voices. 2 individuals. 10:05. Footsteps outside unit. Then came the knock. Not loud, not timid. 2 taps, a pause, then 1 more. Practiced, measured, designed to avoid alarm while establishing presence. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A woman stood slightly to the side, holding a folder. A man stood behind her with a tablet. Both wore neutral expressions, the kind meant to reassure without inviting conversation. I opened the door halfway. Yes, I said. Good morning, the woman replied. We're here for your wellness check. I asked. I'm with Care Coordination, she said, lifting the folder slightly. This is my colleague from Community Health. Titles, not names. Titles reduce accountability. I did not confirm a visit, I said evenly. We understand, she replied quickly. This is just a brief conversation. 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a negotiation anchor. It implies harmlessness while allowing expansion. I requested source documentation, I said. It has not been provided. She smiled, the expression practiced but not unkind. This is part of that process. Process is another word that absorbs consent. I will not conduct an interview, I said. You may leave written materials. The man behind her shifted slightly. The tablet tilted. A reflection of my doorway flashed across its screen. Documentation flows both directions now. We're only here to ensure continuity, she said. Continuity of what? I asked. A pause. Then, care. I held the door where it was. Half open, half closed. Boundaries are physical before they are legal. I am not under care, I said. You may note that I declined. Her smile tightened just enough to register effort. She nodded once and slipped a pamphlet from the folder, extending it toward the opening. I did not take it immediately. I observed the header first. Community Wellness Initiative. Initiative is a word without edges. It expands to fill the space it's given. I accepted the pamphlet and stepped back slightly. They interpreted the movement as completion. The woman thanked me. The man tapped his tablet once. A final timestamp, perhaps. They turned and walked down the hallway without further attempt. I closed the door and listened to their footsteps fade. The building resumed its neutral hum, as if nothing had occurred. At the desk, I wrote, 10:07, 2 representatives. Titles only. Language. Continuity, care, process. Decline recorded verbally. Written material accepted. I examined the pamphlet. No physician named. No case number. Only a phone line and a website identical to the one on the earlier notice. Consistency is the appearance of legitimacy. I placed the pamphlet beside the letter and aligned their corners. Alignment reveals accumulation. Accumulation reveals pattern. Then I opened the laptop and checked the portal again. A new entry had appeared beneath the visit line. Outreach attempted. Attempted is a word that suggests effort without requiring success. In records, effort becomes evidence of engagement, even when engagement never occurred. I printed the page. The printer marked the margin with the current time. 10:19. Paper captures sequence. Sequence resists revision. I filed the printout behind the others and closed the folder slowly. Not ceremonially, just enough to signal completion. In the notebook, I added the final line for the morning. Outreach logged. Participation absent. Record expanding. No voices were raised. No accusations were made. Nothing was taken. And yet, my file had grown. The next change did not arrive on paper. It arrived as a label. I noticed it while ordering a prescription refill online, something I had done the same way for years. The interface had not changed. The colors were the same, the buttons in their predictable places. Consistency is how systems maintain trust while altering meaning. Under my name, just beneath the standard identification fields, a small gray tag had appeared. Care flag. Active. 2 words. No explanation. Flags are efficient. They require no detail to influence behavior. They do not accuse. They categorize. And once a category exists, every interaction begins to adjust around it. I did not click it immediately. Clicking acknowledges. Observation preserves neutrality. Instead, I completed the refill request as usual and waited for the confirmation page. It loaded with a slight delay, longer than normal, but not long enough to be obvious. Delays are often where systems consult their internal hierarchies. When the confirmation appeared, a new line had been inserted. Processing time may vary due to care coordination. May vary is indefinite. Indefinite creates tolerance. Tolerance becomes permission if left unchallenged. I opened the notebook. Date, time, interface detail, exact phrasing, label introduced, care flag, active, effect, processing delay language, source, portal interface. Then I navigated to the account settings, not the medical history. Categories often reveal themselves in administrative corners rather than clinical ones. There it was again, in smaller text. Profile status. Assisted monitoring. Assisted is a word that implies benefit. Monitoring implies oversight. Combined, they produce compliance without resistance. People rarely object to assistance. They object to control. Language avoids the second word. I checked the access log once more. A new entry had appeared overnight. Device unfamiliar. Duration 12 minutes. Actions. Profile update. Preferences viewed. No message had been sent. No notification triggered. Silence is the most efficient delivery method. I printed the access log and filed it behind the outreach printouts. The folder had begun to thicken, not with emotion, but with sequence. Sequence is difficult to argue with later. Midday, the pharmacy called. Not about the refill, about verification. The pharmacist's tone was polite, almost apologetic. We just need to confirm a few details due to your active care flag. Which details? I asked. Nothing unusual, she said. Just confirmation that you're managing medications independently. Independently is a question disguised as a compliment. I am, I replied. A brief pause. Keyboard sounds. Then, thank you. I'll note that. Note is a powerful verb. It converts speech into permanence. After the call, I added another line to the notebook. Pharmacy verification triggered by flag. Independence stated verbally. Outcome unknown. In the afternoon, I walked to the market as usual. Routine is a counterweight to classification. The cashier greeted me by name. The receipt printed with its familiar cadence. Physical transactions still recognized me without qualifiers. When I returned home, I checked the mailbox. A flyer had been slid inside. No envelope, no address. Local support resources for seniors. I am not offended by age. I am attentive to implication. Flyers do not select themselves. I placed it beside the pamphlet and aligned the edges. Two different organizations. Identical tone. Similar phrasing. No direct authority, only suggestion. Suggestion accumulates until it resembles consensus. At the desk, I wrote the final entry for the day. Label present across systems. Verifications triggered. External materials increasing. No one had argued with me. No one had accused me. No one had taken anything away. But my profile now contained a flag. My processing times had begun to vary, and my independence had become a field to be confirmed. When a system changes your category, it does not announce a verdict. It adjusts your margins. The confirmation arrived by email. Not a request. A summary. Care plan initiated. No action required. Those 4 words are designed to bypass resistance. No action required. Suggests relief while quietly closing options. I opened the message and read it once without scrolling. The subject line is where intent usually hides. Then I scrolled. A list of supportive measures had been activated on my behalf. None were urgent. None were invasive. Each was described as optional. Together, they formed a structure. Pharmacy coordination. Appointment reminders. Community outreach availability. Authorized contact on file. Authorized contact. 2 words that convert proximity into permission. I did not click the link provided. Links collapse context into a single page. Pages can be updated without leaving traces. Instead, I selected Print and chose the option that included headers and timestamps. The margin captured the sender, the route, the exact minute it had been generated. I wrote in the notebook. Care plan initiated without consent. Language. Optional. Structure. Cumulative. Authorized contact referenced. Then I opened the portal again. A new tab had appeared at the top of the screen. Support. It had not been there yesterday. I hovered over it without clicking. Hover states often reveal what clicks conceal. A small menu expanded. Resources. Appointments. Contacts. Contacts. I clicked that one. A name appeared beneath mine, formatted cleanly, without explanation. No phone number visible. No address. Just a designation. Primary support contact. Primary is a hierarchy word. It implies precedence without proving it. I did not delete it. Deletions invite notifications. Notifications trigger reviews. Reviews create narratives. Instead, I opened the access log and noted the timestamp of its addition. 2:14 a.m., 2 nights earlier. 2:14 is a time chosen for absence. Systems assume people are asleep. I printed the contacts page and filed it behind the flag entries. The folder now told a story without adjectives. Adjectives are emotional. Sequences are durable. Mid-afternoon, the doorbell rang. Not a knock this time. A bell. Short, precise. I checked the peephole. A courier stood outside holding a flat envelope. No uniform I recognized. Neutral clothing. Neutral posture. I opened the door halfway. Delivery, he said, extending the envelope. No sender name. My address typed. My name correct. Inside was a single card. We're here when you need us. A phone number. No organization. No signature. Ambiguity travels further than authority. I placed the card beside the flyers and pamphlets, aligning their edges. Alignment reveals repetition. Repetition reveals orchestration. Back at the desk, I added. Care plan email received. Support tab added. Primary contact listed without disclosure. And branded outreach delivered. In the evening, the pharmacy app sent a notification. Refill ready. Care team notified. Not you. Care team. Pronouns are the smallest instruments of transfer. They shift ownership without debate. I did not respond. Responses become entries. Entries become interpretations. Silence, when documented privately, preserves intent without feeding the system. Before closing the folder, I reviewed the order. Observation. Assigned physician. Unverified visit. Outreach attempted. Care flag active. Care plan initiated. Primary support contact. No single item accused me. No single item restricted me. But together, they formed a corridor. I wrote the final line for the day. Authority distributed. Consent implied. Record expanding. When a plan is created around you, it does not begin with force. It begins with summaries. The next change appeared where I did not expect it. At the bank, I went there on a Thursday afternoon, the same way I always did. Walked the same route, greeted the same security guard, took a number from the same small red dispenser near the entrance. Routine is how you measure deviation. My number was called 2 minutes later. That, by itself, was unusual. The bank is never that fast. I approached the counter and slid my card across. The teller smiled politely, typed my account number, and then her expression shifted. Not alarm, not concern. Adjustment. I just need to confirm a few additional details, she said. Of course, I replied. She asked for my address. Normal. My date of birth. Normal. Then she paused and said, and your support contact, please. I did not answer immediately. Support contact? I repeated. Yes, she said lightly, still smiling. It's part of your profile. Profile. I had not added any such field. I don't have one, I said calmly. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Our system shows a designated contact. Remove it, I said. I'm not authorized to remove profile designations, she replied. Only update them. Update implies acceptance of the category. Remove implies questioning its existence. I'm not updating, I said. I'm declining. She nodded, typed something, then continued with the transaction. Her tone remained polite, but the transaction took longer than usual. Every click now carried weight. When I left, I did not feel anger. I felt confirmation. I wrote in the notebook the moment I reached the bench outside the bank. Support contact field present in financial profile. Removal refused. Designation acknowledged by staff. The transfer was complete. The money had moved. Nothing had been denied. But my identity now contained a secondary reference. Secondary references create pathways. Pathways become permissions if left unattended. I returned home and opened the portal again. The support tab had not changed. The contact name remained. No phone number. No email. Just the label. Labels are efficient because they do not need details to function. In the evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man introduced himself as a care liaison. His voice was neutral, practiced, as if he were reading from a script designed to sound unscripted. We just wanted to check if you received the recent updates, he said. I received summaries, I replied. Excellent, he said. If you need assistance. I do not, I interrupted gently. A pause. Well, he continued, we're here if anything changes. Change is the word systems use when they are already moving. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I wrote, care liaison contact. No request made. Presence reaffirmed. Later that night, I reviewed the folder. Every entry had followed the same pattern. No accusation. No denial. Just adjustment. Adjustment accumulates quietly, and once accumulated, it begins to resemble agreement. I closed the folder and aligned it with the edge of the desk. When authority shifts, it rarely arrives with a command. It arrives as an extra field. The first restriction did not look like a restriction. It looked like assistance. I discovered it while trying to change my electricity billing date. A minor adjustment. Something I had done twice before without difficulty. The utility website loaded normally. The menus were where they always were. The option was still visible. But when I selected a new date and pressed confirm, a small gray message appeared at the bottom of the screen. Additional authorization required. No error. No refusal. Just a condition. I read it twice, then checked the page for details. There were none. A small hyperlink labeled Learn More led to a general FAQ page about supported accounts. Supported. I opened the notebook. Utility change blocked. Additional authorization. Terminology. Supported account. No authority named. Then I called customer service. The representative was polite, efficient. She verified my identity, asked standard questions, then paused. I see a support designation on your profile, she said. Certain changes require confirmation. Confirmation from whom? I asked. From your listed contact, she replied. There it was again. Not permission. Confirmation. I declined that structure, I said evenly. Please note that. I can add a note, she said, the same phrasing as before. But the designation remains until updated. Update is the system's preferred verb. It suggests progress while avoiding origin. I ended the call and printed the page showing the blocked change. The margin timestamp read 1437. I filed it behind the bank entry. Sequence was forming. Later that afternoon, I attempted something smaller, changing the delivery day for my newspaper subscription. The website loaded. The option appeared. I selected Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Change pending review. Review is a softer word than approval. It implies evaluation without admitting control. I did not call. I printed the page and added it to the folder. 2 different companies. 2 identical patterns. In the evening, an email arrived from my internet provider. We've updated your account preferences for your convenience. No details in the subject line. Inside, a short paragraph informed me that account stability measures had been activated. A link led to a settings page with a new toggle already switched on. Trusted contact enabled. No name visible. Just the state, enabled. I took a screenshot, then printed it with headers. The root of the email was visible in the margin. Servers remember what summaries omit. In the notebook, I wrote, utilities. Authorization required. Subscription. Pending review. Internet. Trusted contact enabled. Pattern. External services adopting designation. No one had denied me service. No one had accused me of incapacity. They had introduced friction. Friction changes behavior without announcing rules. People adapt to avoid inconvenience. Adaptation becomes acceptance if not recorded. I closed the laptop and sat quietly long enough for the room to return to its ordinary sounds. The radiator ticked once. A car passed outside. The kettle cooled. Nothing in the apartment had changed. Everything outside it had adjusted. I added the final line for the day. Restrictions framed as support. Control distributed. Record intact. When systems begin to coordinate, they do not raise barriers. They add confirmations. The message did not arrive with urgency. It arrived with familiarity. Can you call me when you have a minute? No explanation. No context. Just a tone I recognized. Careful, almost apologetic. I waited an hour before returning the call. Not to delay. To observe whether a second message would come. It didn't. That meant confidence. Whoever sent it believed the first line was enough. When I finally dialed, the voice on the other end sounded relieved. I'm glad you called, she said. We need to clear something up before it becomes complicated. Complicated is a word people use when they've already done something irreversible. I'm listening, I replied. There was a pause. Papers shifting. The soft exhale of someone deciding how much truth to release. I was contacted about you, she said. By a coordinator. They said you might need assistance. Did you tell them I did? I asked. No, she answered quickly. Then slower. Not exactly. Not exactly is confirmation wearing polite clothing. What did you sign? I asked. Silence. Not denial. Not confusion. Recognition. It was just a verification, she said finally. They needed a reference. Someone who knows you. And you provided one. Yes, but I didn't. You confirmed their file. I finished for her. Her breath caught. Because that was the correct term. Files don't need permission once they have corroboration. They only need alignment. I thought it was harmless, she said. They told me it was routine. They always do, I replied. There was a long pause then. Long enough for honesty to almost appear. I didn't know it would go this far, she admitted. That sentence matters. Not because it excuses anything, but because it reveals intention. She didn't deny the action. She denied the outcome, which means the action was deliberate. Do you know what they marked? I asked. No. They just asked if you'd been overwhelmed lately. And you said? I said you'd been under pressure, she whispered. Pressure. A neutral word in conversation. A loaded word in documentation. Pressure implies instability. Instability implies oversight. Oversight implies authority. The chain is always linguistic before it becomes legal. I didn't mean anything by it, she said. I was trying to help. Help is the most common disguise for participation. You didn't help, I said calmly. You validated. She went quiet again. This time not defensive, reflective. I'm sorry, she said eventually. I believed she meant it. But apologies don't erase records. They only explain how they were created. We ended the call without conflict. No raised voices. No accusations. Because the damage wasn't emotional. It was procedural. I opened my notebook and added a single line beneath the date. External validation obtained. Source. Familiar. Language. Pressure. Then I closed it. Betrayal is rarely loud. It rarely announces itself with intent. Most of the time, it arrives as cooperation, signed in good faith, filed in the wrong system, and discovered too late to retract. And the system doesn't care whether the signature came from malice or misunderstanding. It only cares that it exists. The file did not frighten me. Its completeness did. When I finally saw it, not the whole thing, only a portion. I understood why resistance had felt ineffective. There was no villain inside it. No dramatic accusation. No single document that could be argued against. There were entries, dates, notes, references, neutral phrases arranged in chronological order. It looked reasonable. That is how systems win. Not by force, but by appearing orderly. The coordinator had not written, decline. She had written, monitor. Not, confused. Occasionally uncertain. Not, incapable. Support recommended. Each word alone was harmless. Together, they formed direction. I read one line twice. Family contact confirms increased pressure indicators. No name. No accusation. Just alignment. I closed the portal and sat back in my chair. The room was quiet except for the clock, steady as always. Nothing around me had changed. The lamp still leaned slightly left. The floorboard near the window still creaked on the second step. The air still carried the faint scent of paper and coffee. But now I understood something important. The system was not attacking me. It was categorizing me, and categorization doesn't require conflict. It requires consistency. That's why nothing felt urgent. Urgency attracts scrutiny. Order invites compliance. I opened my notebook and reviewed the entries I'd made over the past weeks. They were precise, neutral, chronological. For the first time, I saw my notes the way the system saw theirs. Parallel structures. They had observations. I had confirmations. They had language. I had timestamps. The difference was not scale. It was awareness. Most people argue with systems emotionally. They protest the intention. They challenge fairness. They raise their voices. Systems don't respond to volume. They respond to documentation. I remembered something from years ago, a conversation with a colleague who specialized in regulatory audits. He once said, "Institutions don't shout, they accumulate." At the time, it sounded abstract. Now it sounded exact. The realization did not make me angry. Anger is inefficient. It made me still, because stillness is where structure begins. I returned to the portal once more and copied the visible entries into my notebook. Word for word, spelling included, not to fight them, to mirror them. Mirroring reveals imbalance. When two records exist, truth isn't decided by emotion. It's decided by coherence, and coherence is built quietly. I closed the notebook and placed it back in the drawer. The drawer aligned perfectly when shut. No protrusion, no misfit. That detail mattered more than it should have. Because order is not control. Order is evidence that control exists somewhere. For weeks, I had been reacting, clarifying, answering questions I hadn't asked. Now, for the first time, I understood the landscape. This was not about proving I was right. It was about proving I was present. Systems don't remove people who are present. They remove people who are silent. I stood, walked to the window, and watched the street below. Cars moved in predictable intervals. Pedestrians followed crosswalk signals even when no vehicles approached. Order feels safe. That is why people trust it. The system trusted its file. Soon, it would have to trust mine. Because the moment I understood its language, the dynamic changed. They were not documenting a decline. They were documenting a narrative. And narratives can be corrected, not with arguments, but with records. They didn't hate me. They didn't know me. They simply followed the notes they were given. Which meant the solution was never confrontation. It was alignment. I returned to my desk and wrote one sentence on a clean page. They are not against me. They are following paperwork. Then beneath it, another. Paperwork can be followed both ways. I did not send emails that night. I did not make calls. I did not correct anyone. Correction invites debate. Debate creates interpretation. Interpretation weakens records. Instead, I reorganized. Not my apartment, my information. I began with duplication. Every document that mattered received a second existence. Physical copy, digital scan, timestamped. Not because I expected loss. Because systems respect redundancy. I labeled folders the way institutions do, not emotionally, functionally. Medical, confirmed. Financial, verified. Communication, logged. No adjectives, no explanations, only status. The next step was sequencing. I created timelines not of feelings, but of interactions. Dates, durations, exact phrases. When someone had said, pressure, I noted the minute. When a portal entry used, monitor, I wrote the spelling exactly. Language reveals hierarchy. Hierarchy reveals intent. I did not correct their words. I preserved them. The third step was accessibility. I ensured that every record could be reached without permission. Not hidden. Not encrypted beyond reason. Security is not secrecy. Security is clarity with structure. Then I stopped touching it. That is the part most people misunderstand. Documentation is not effective if it looks revised. Revision suggests insecurity. I let the folders sit. Aligned. Complete. Silent. Days passed. I answered questions normally. I kept appointments. I walked the same route each morning. Consistency is the most persuasive argument. Not spoken. Demonstrated. Eventually, a message arrived. Just checking in. Are you feeling okay this week? I replied, yes. All records are current. Not emotional. Not defensive. Status. The response took longer than usual. Good to hear. Short. Uncertain. Because the dynamic had shifted. Not visibly, structurally. They expected reaction. They received organization. Organization signals awareness. Awareness signals autonomy. Systems do not escalate against autonomy. They recalibrate around it. One afternoon, I noticed a change in the portal. An entry had been amended. Not removed, clarified. Support recommended, became. Support offered. One word. Different implication. I did not celebrate. I noted the revision. Mirroring had begun to work. I added a line to my notebook. Amendment observed. Language softened. Then I closed it again. The quiet response is not silence. It is presence without confrontation. It does not argue with a system. It reminds the system it is being observed. Observation alters behavior more reliably than resistance. Because resistance feels like opposition. Observation feels like accountability. I did not need them to apologize. I did not need acknowledgement. I needed coherence. By the end of the week, I noticed something subtle. The frequency of messages decreased. The tone changed from advisory to neutral. Not because they trusted me. Because they now trusted the structure. And structures do not shout. They stand. The final step was the simplest. I placed the notebook back in the drawer and left it there. Not hidden. Not displayed. Available. Because readiness is more powerful than reaction. I no longer felt categorized. I felt indexed. And indexing is reversible. The system had not been hostile. It had been incomplete. Now it had two sets of records. Theirs and mine. And when two records exist, the one with consistency becomes reference. I did not correct them. I aligned them. Quietly. The system did not collapse. It misaligned. There is a difference. Collapse is dramatic. Misalignment is procedural. I noticed it on a Tuesday morning. The kind of morning that feels identical to every other. Coffee, window, clock, routine creates the conditions where irregularities become visible. The portal notification was brief. Status review updated. No urgency. No explanation. I opened it expecting another neutral adjustment. A softened phrase, a clarified recommendation. Instead, I found duplication. Two entries existed for the same date. Same coordinator. Different conclusions. One read, monitoring continues. Support optional. The other, monitoring escalated. Support required. Same timestamp. That should not happen. Systems do not contradict themselves unless two processes intersect without synchronization. It was not a mistake anyone intended. It was a mistake no one noticed. Which is more powerful? I did not screenshot it immediately. I waited. Waiting reveals whether an error is structural or temporary. 20 minutes later, the duplication remained. That meant it had propagated beyond a single view. I captured it then. Date, time, visible metadata. Not triumph. Confirmation. The break was not the contradiction itself. It was what the contradiction implied. Two narratives had been operating simultaneously. One cautious, one accelerated, both officially recorded. That is where coherence fails. I returned to my notebook and wrote. Parallel entries detected. Same authority. Divergent status. No adjectives. Only facts. Then I closed the portal. I did not contact anyone. I did not question it. Systems self-correct when confronted by their own inconsistency. By afternoon, another notification appeared. Entry revised. I opened it. The support required line had been replaced with monitoring clarified. No escalation at this time. The duplication was gone. The tone neutralized. Correction without admission. That is how institutions apologize. The break was not visible to most people. No alarms, no letters, but internally, something had shifted. From that point forward, every entry carried cautious phrasing. Every update referenced prior confirmation. They had begun citing my records implicitly. Not by name, by alignment. The system was no longer categorizing me. It was referencing me. That is the reversal. When a structure begins to check itself against your presence, you are no longer inside it. You are part of its calibration. I did not feel victorious. Victory suggests conflict. This was resolution. The quiet kind. The kind where nothing ends dramatically, but everything resumes correctly. I opened the drawer and reviewed my notes. Pages filled with dates, phrases, durations. No emotion. No speculation. Just sequence. Sequence defeats confusion. I added one final line beneath the day's entry. Inconsistency resolved without intervention. Then I placed the notebook back exactly where it had been. The apartment remained unchanged. The lamp still leaned slightly left. The floorboard still creaked on the second step. But the air no longer felt staged. It felt synchronized. Systems do not need to be beaten. They need to be balanced. And balance does not arrive through force. It arrives through presence. The break was never about exposing fault. It was about proving continuity. Once continuity was undeniable, the narrative adjusted itself. Quietly, permanently. Nothing was announced. No letter arrived declaring resolution. No message apologized. No one admitted error. The changes revealed themselves only through absence. The reminders stopped first. Then the check-ins. Then the cautious language. The portal still existed, but it no longer addressed me. It simply reflected status. Neutral. Balanced. Complete. I did not log in as often after that. Not because I trusted it. Because it no longer required observation. That is the sign of equilibrium. My routines returned to their natural weight. Coffee tasted like coffee again instead of distraction. The clock resumed being background instead of reference. Nothing dramatic shifted. That is how real endings occur. Quietly. One afternoon, I opened the drawer and looked at the notebook. Its pages were full, but not heavy. Dates aligned. Entries concise. I considered archiving it elsewhere. Then I left it where it was. Not as a weapon. Not as insurance. As proof of continuity. Continuity is what systems recognize. Not declarations. Not emotions. Presence. Weeks passed. No new entries appeared anywhere. Not theirs. Not mine. The apartment held the same small imperfections. The lamp leaning slightly left. The floorboard announcing the second step. Familiarity is not repetition. It is stability observed. I realized something then. The situation had never been about conflict. It had been about authorship. Who writes the narrative determines the direction. But who preserves the sequence determines the truth. I did not erase their records. I did not correct their language. I added mine. And when both existed, coherence chose the quieter one. The system did not apologize. It recalibrated. People expect endings to feel triumphant or tragic. Most endings feel ordinary. Ordinary is not failure. Ordinary is alignment restored. I returned to my desk, placed a blank page beneath the final entry, and wrote nothing on it. Space matters. It shows the record is complete without needing closure. I closed the notebook, aligned it with the drawer's edge, and turned off the lamp. The room did not feel different. I did. Not relieved. Not vindicated. Present. Because presence is what remains when conflict leaves. And presence, when documented, becomes permanence. Thank you for listening. Calm justice doesn't shout. It keeps records.